For this latest podcast, I am delighted to welcome back a guest for the first time onto the pod in the form of racing guru Quentin Franks. Welcome back to the pod. Quentin, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Peter. Thank you very much for having me back on. Pleasure, and hopefully a good podcast ahead.
Undoubtedly. Well, you're a podcast veteran these days because I know you're on the bar stewards regularly, and you're somebody who's quite the racing judge, and people like to hear from you. So today we're going to be talking about a few different topics, actually. First of all, surrounding your tipping service that's been running since 2014, its move to SBC from 2023, the changes we're employing to make it a little bit more usable. And we're also going to look at some of the independent bookmaker firms that you bet with and that are out there. We spoke about briefly in the first podcast, and there is a degree of interest in that topic. First things first, though, I have to ask you about a rumor that was doing the rounds that you were retiring. Now, I don't know many 30-year-old retirees, unless maybe they bought Bitcoin back when it was worth nothing. So let's start there. These rumours of your retirement are quite wide of the mark and, in fact, totally made up, are they not?
They are totally made up and wide of the mark. I kind of decided to leave betting because it felt like the time for a change. And in one of my Barstool's musings, I kind of mentioned that I'm open to offers because I do enjoy the tipping side of things. I enjoy, it's a very solitary pursuit, hunting on your own. Tipping side allows you to meet and communicate with new people, made friends from that side of things, talk to people about new edges, etc. So no, certainly not retiring at the age of 31. So yeah, looking forward to starting up with Smart Betting Club.
Yes, and it's fair to say that you put out that post and you said you're open to offers, and we engaged in that discussion, and we've come to the arrangement whereby you're going to be working with us. Your service is going to be one of our premium services from January 2023. We'll talk a little bit about that in the podcast. Well, first of all, it's worth saying, I know you do the tipping, but you are a professional gambler, and 90%, I think, from when we spoke last time, of your income is from your own betting. And the tipping is basically, well, you're already doing the work. You do betting and trading yourself. And the tipping is just something, like you say, that helps you tick over and keeps you involved and does something other than just punting for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Tipping industry's slightly changed over the last few years. So it's kind of now 90% punting is the income. That's punting / trading, in all honesty. That's the way I've kind of gone, but I like to keep the tax man happy with something kind of coming in and HMRC, etc. So yeah, that's 90% of the income is betting on that side of things.
But you do put a heck of a lot of time in each day. I've met with you a few times, and you're always telling me about the long hours and the early starts, and how much time you put in. You watched all kinds of races. You've got all kind of videos and information and form analysis that you undertake every day. So this is not just picking up a copy of the Racing Post and going, "Oh, I fancy that horse." It's it's a heck of a lot of work that goes in every day, isn't there?
Yeah, 12 to probably 15 hours throughout the summer months. It's long, it can be tedious at times, but not really qualified for anything else at this stage of life. You've kind of been a pro punter for 10 years, so who's going to want a punter on the books of some sort of non-punting firm? No, it's a hell of a lot of video replays, time analysis, sectional timing, and the tipping kind of runs alongside it. So everything, the work I do, I'll be putting in anyway, and it's nice to kind of turn other people a few quid profit as they go along as well.
Exactly, yes. And you've been, like I say, let's talk about your service, because you're moving over to SBC and you've been doing it since 2014. So we've got 9 years record, and we'll explore those results shortly. But we are changing things as you come over to SBC. Is, I believe, one of the frustrations that you've had in terms of things like odds movement and the number of people following your service. And I suppose one of the key things that we're going to implement is a membership cap, isn't it? It's not a marketing gimmick. It's a genuine need to protect or limit the number of people that are following your advice. So those people that are a subscriber are able to get on the odds of the bets you put forward a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. The membership cap that we've spoken about is something I want to implement in place at Betting Gods. I kind of found more towards the end or after a hot run that prices were just kind of disappearing, and you can wake up 5 minutes late, someone or miss the email, and all of a sudden you're 10 to 1 shots, 13 to 2, and like it's no use for anyone. It's frustrating for members. It's frustrating for me because I kind of want everyone to have a fair crack at the whip as much as possible. Things are easier said than done, but all we can do is implement as much as possible to make sure people get on at the right price and at the right odds.
Yeah, because you're a victim of your own success in many ways, because you're good, you've got a great record, you better win only as well, which appeals to a lot of people. But yeah, that word spreads and people start following. And if there's no limits in terms of how many people can access that, then you are ultimately causing issues in the market for people to get on. And one of the other things that we're keen to point out is that this is a service for people who use bookmakers only. Mindful of the fact that obviously a degree of people out there who don't have bookmaker account access available, but there are still quite a few people that do. And the reason for that is if people start to take money on the exchanges, and we do see that, even at the time you're putting bets up, 10 o'clock in the morning, for example, there's not much on the exchanges sometimes. And even just a smattering of money can make a massive impact on the prices bookmakers offer. So do you want to walk through why it's important to say this is only for bookmaker users only?
Yeah, it makes sense. Everybody kind of knows that the firms are hooked up to Betfair. Once it ticks under a price, then they'll cut it. So you put a bet up at 8-1, all of a sudden people are clambering to get on at 7.4. The price is going to be then 6-1 with the firms. So it's just trying to keep the price around for as long as possible. Also just adding in certain firms and putting the prices with firms that have the free firms that have the price available, none of these Mickey Mouse right hand side of odds checker firms as the big firms, your 365, Sky Bet, Hills, Ladbrokes, Coral, etc., etc. It's frustrating asking people not to be able to back it on Betfair, but in terms of the longevity of the price, longevity of the service, it's definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah, because we performed a review and analysis of nearly 10,000 bets, and there is no actual edge at Betfair, Betfair SP for your service. It, indicates that, how well supported they have been, and there's no edge. So again, it's not a service where you can wait necessarily to get on Betfair later on. There's no guarantee that those odds are going to be available in the exchange market, but they certainly will be with bookmakers, especially with the fact that free bookmakers are offering the odds there. We're also looking at managing the time of advice as well. There's a quid pro quo, there's a balance, if you like, between if you find a bet, I know we've spoken about this, you might find a bet at 6 p.m. the night before, and then you go to bed and cross your fingers that no one else sees it. So come the next morning at 9 a.m., for example, the price is still available. No one else has picked it out. And sometimes that's not the case, is it? Sometimes it is. But by waiting until that morning, it gives you, although you'll miss out on some, there's still quite a few that are available to be backed. And it's just a matter of trying to pick out a time which is still feasible for people to get on with bookmakers without some of the issues of taking an overnight price, where the bookmakers are very sensitive to that, aren't they? If you take a price too early, they're going to slash it, and perhaps your account won't last much longer than a few bets.
Exactly. You kind of see it more and more. I think the overnight markets at the moment are just extremely thin. I had a horse I was kind of semi-interested in today, 40-1 in the overnights. Someone put it up at 5:30. All of a sudden, by 6 o'clock, it's 9-1, and you're kind of like, okay, fine, it's off the list. But in terms of people betting at them prices, no, their accounts aren't going to last long term. So 9 a.m. I kind of feel is the right sort of time. There's a bit more liquidity in the market. People are willing to hold on to positions and take positions on horses. And then obviously, as we had mentioned, a additional kind of update later in the morning, maybe around 10:30, 10:45. If there's any further bets that have drifted out to a price that I would deem to be value.
Exactly. So we're trying to find the sweet spot, if you like. Obviously, it might not work for everybody, but if you have bookmaker accounts available and you're available at that time, those times of day, then certainly it could well appeal to you. And let's talk about your record, because one of the great things about when we have a tipster like yourself that has nearly 10,000 bets is that we can really draw some firm conclusions from the analysis. It's a lot easier than when you have 1,000 bets, for example, and there's a large degree of guesswork. But for yourself, you've got about a 15.77% ROI. And what impressed me the most, actually, the fact you actually made a profit every year. Your lowest was 6.36% in 2020, which I imagine was COVID impacted, and the highest in 2016 of nearly 37%. How do you feel about that overall picture? And am I correct in my assumptions as to 2020's reduced ROI?
Spot on with the reduced ROI in terms of COVID. It was kind of a disjointed horse racing season, stop starts, and when it came back in June, I think racing came back. Horses maybe weren't fit, maybe the yards didn't have the staff in, COVID in the yards, etc., etc. So it's a year, I think a lot of people that if they've had a negative or a less return investment, have kind of put down to that. And rightfully so, I'd say. In terms of the overall picture, obviously it's fantastic to have a profitable year every single year. I kind of feel I've underperformed slightly with the 15.77% return on investment. I think kind of being able to send my own emails and doing like a second update throughout the day without relying on someone else to send an email should allow that to be higher, and I can kind of push towards a 17.5%. So yeah, overall happy with it, yeah.
Great. Yeah. So I was just digging out the figures actually from our Monte Carlo simulations, which take your profile and run it multiple times or millions of times to get some concerted figures. And the likelihood of a losing year is 2.53%. So you're due to have one every 39 and a half years, according to that. So, and that probably goes down to the quantity of bets that you put forward and your strike rate, which is, let me see, the strike rate is 22.44% long term. So yeah, let's talk about your approach, because you bet win only, about 3 to 4 bets a day. Why do you do so? Does each way betting not interest you, or you just always like to bet on the nose?
Each way betting, it does interest me at times, but in terms of getting bets on for myself, managing positions, keeping accounts open, I've just kind of found each way betting a no-go. The way I frame races, so rather than framing race for a place part of the race and looking to pick up the place money, I'm quite happy just to bet on the nose and trust my figures long term and ride out the longer periods of losing. I kind of thought that makes more sense for me and just the way I work. So that's why I've left it over the last decade or so. And yeah, that's it pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, it probably sounds good until you get that 40 to 1 shot chinned on the line. I think you had that recently, didn't you?
Yeah, there's been a few of them this year, and you just have to take the rough with the smooth. So it was a lot easier for me to get money win only on a 40 to 1 shot than it would be to kind of a 40 to 1 shot in a novice or something with a 5 to 4 favourite, which isn't necessarily a bad each way bet. But yeah, I'm happy to take the longer periods in the red, and then there'll be longer periods in the black long term.
Mm-hmm. And I want to also talk about your odds range, because you do take a wide range of odds. You might take under 2 to 1, you might go regularly, you might have double figure odds. And we did some analysis on the odds band and where you're profitable. Well, you're profitable effectively at all odds bands, and it's actually the two that stand out are over 9.5, where that's decimal. So you've got a 56% ROI from 1,900 bets, and then up to 2 to 1, where you've actually got a minus 2% ROI. Keen to get your thoughts on that, because some people might be tempted to just ignore those 2 to 1 and under and focus solely on those over 17 to 2. I imagine you wouldn't advocate that. It would create some kind of issues with strike rate and bankroll and losing runs, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting one because it's a fair size sample of bets. So like the up to 2 to 1 shots, there is a small loss there, but mentally for me, I'm quite happy to, in a weird way, have them. Maybe it's something I'll look at, maybe having them bets if they're a stronger percentage edge and cutting down on them slightly. But in terms of bankroll, it keeps the losing run slightly shorter. Just having a couple of winners throughout that odds band to tick over. I personally wouldn't advocate just going over the 9.5. I know there's some people do that, and it can be a long time between drinks. And then, as you say, you need to kind of change the bankroll up from the recommended bankroll 200 points.
Yeah, I think from our analysis, we did look at it if you took out those under 2 to 1 and under, and I believe it extended the losing or the drawdowns by about 15%. Might not sound much, but as well as some deeper drawdowns that can take place, some of the other ones can be a little bit bigger, and so it all has a knock-on effect in your bankroll. And we're talking about that bankroll management, obviously a critical part, and no doubt something that you do for your own betting extensively. From what we see with yourself, we're advocating about 200-point bankroll, which indicates 971% return on capital over 9 years. So, that's over 100% of bankroll, so doubling your bank every year, pretty much. And Monte Carlo simulation suggests there's about a 50% chance of a 69-point drawdown in any given year. So the idea being once every 2 years, you should have a drawdown of perhaps 69 points is to be expected. How does that stand up with what you do in terms of your own bankroll management? Does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Kind of falls in line with my figures as well. Obviously, any given year can be different. So it might not be 1 year you don't have that drawdown. Could be 3 years you don't have that drawdown. Then 3 years in a row you have a 69 9-point drawdown. So it's not all created equal, but 200 points kind of gives you 200 points. Betting bank gives you a nice cushion if you do happen to miss out on a larger price winner, or you're taking slightly under the recommended prices. So that falls in line with my betting bank and the way I play things.
Yeah, I mean, some people like to take different approaches. Depends on your attitude to risk. I mean, our approach really at SBC is we're kind of looking to at least double what we could reasonably expect in terms of betting bank sizes. We find that once people lose more than 50% of their bank, they start to get twitchy, if not beforehand, but certainly over that as a threshold. I mean, it depends when you start. I mean, if you start following a tipster and he has a fantastic run, then sometimes you can stick too much. And then when that losing run hits, it bites you. But equally, if you start on a bad run and you don't have the right bankroll, you're going to give up quite quickly. Because if you've got no credit in the bank with a tipster and you've lost 20, 30, 40% of your bankroll with them, you're likely going to give up a lot sooner than if you'd had the good run to begin with and had built some credit up. So that's the bankroll, but that's I suppose the negative side of betting. But what about the positive side and reinvesting your stakes? Because compounding, whatever, it's a wonder of the world, the power of compounding. And we looked at it from a simple SBC review perspective. We always do this. We add basically 2.5% after every winning month. To do that, the profits grow from, 1,942 points to 5,196 points. It's a slightly lower ROI, about 1.5%, but much greater profit levels. In terms of your own staking, do you take a similar approach? How you increase your stakes as your bank grows? You then increase MG. What approach do you take, Quentin?
My approach is kind of, my bank's big enough for what I get on, so it's kind of try and get on what I can in aligned with my staking plan, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I've got a big enough bankroll for the stakes I'm playing at, but it's kind of hard to get on what I'd like with that given bankroll. So it's kind of investing up in other places and different sports and what have you.
I was going to ask, is there like a limit to how much you either want to get on or how much you think you can reasonably continue to get on that informs that?
There's a limit to how much I can get on and how much I can reasonably get with the stakes I want.
Okay, diversifying obviously into other, maybe following other tipsters or other strategies sometimes can make sense rather than just putting more on. But it's certainly something to consider because you can start relatively small and then continue to grow and use that compounding approach to really generate a much higher return. Because effectively from the simple 2.5% every month, you're adding over 3,000 points extra profit to your actual end profit. So your bankroll grows to considerably higher. So just things to consider there. I also wanted to talk about Betfair SP. I mentioned earlier that there's no edge at Betfair SP. Yet the interesting thing that we found is that the average odds of your selections at Betfair SP are actually higher than advised. Let me read out the stats. So your advised prices, average odds are about 7.334, but at Betfair SP it's 8.05. So it's 11% higher at Betfair SP, but yet your ROI is basically negligible at Betfair SP. I'm intrigued to get your take on what's happening there.
I guess it's the shorteners are winning and the drifters are losing, and it's kind of hard to say. It's just variance with a massive sample size of bets. So the market knows more than I do in regards to certain selections that are drifting, and the ones that are shortening up are obviously the ones that are winning on the flip side of the coin, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we see all kinds of stats actually when we analyse tipsters and see what takes place. But this is one that jumped out really because you don't always see this. So yeah, that was my understanding of what's happening in the market there. The winners shortening and the losers drifting, but it doesn't always correlate. So just interesting to see how it worked for yourself. And so that's the service. And I would say we're going to be running this together from January 2023. Depending upon when you listen to this, the service will be either up and running or still soon to launch. And you can find all the relevant information, including all the results and the review and everything like that. It's going to be available to access so people can see all the elements of what we talked about today and make an informed decision about if your service is right for them. So go and check that out if it interests you. So earlier at the start of the podcast, we said we'd talk about independent bookmakers. We talked about them briefly in episode 30 when we first recorded together. I wanted to explore them a little bit more today. First of all then, why bet with independent bookmakers? What's the appeal for someone like you, Quentin?
It's kind of the old school approach to bookmaking. Take a bet. In this day and age, pay out if said bet wins. but quite happy to take a bet where the high street firms and the online firms don't really want any sort of semi-true business anymore, even recreational business. They're willing to take positions, quite happy to. There's a few firms out there of later loses, and like in the day and age where people are finding it hard to get an even 200 quid on something, like some firms with a later lose of £1,000 or £2,000, it goes a long way. So I'm quite happy to bet with them and let them take my money and kind of battle it out and see who wins at the end of the day.
Have you don't experience restrictions with them, or do you have, is it rather than get that restriction email hit your inbox, it's more of a conversation of how you can work together? Or some of them offer, for example, WhatsApp prices. They might see you're asking a price and they might change it. How does it work from that perspective?
I've not really suffered restrictions. Occasionally they'll go, right, we can't offer you 130 on that horse for the stake you want. We'll do you half at 130. We'll do you the rest at 3-1. And then it's kind of down to me. I play the game fair. I'm not looking to back arbs. As you know, I'm not backing each way bets, so there's no bad each way bets thrown into the mix. And they're quite happy to take a bet, shorten the price, and use me as a mark. I'm happy for them to do that as I'm getting my bets on.
And some of them are racecourse bookmakers as well, and they've built up a website, or they've got WhatsApp or Telegram capabilities, and you can communicate and place bets through that. So some of them are actually those guys on course, skilled at trading a book and willing to take a position, aren't they? So, for example, let's talk about one of them, MacBet. We spoke about them previously. That's a horse racing only bookmaker, and I understand they're willing to lay any single bet to lose £1,000 from 8:30 a.m. daily and to lose £2,000 from 11 a.m. daily. So, that's quite appealing for anyone interested, especially like yourself, betting win only and that ability to get on. What's been your experience with MacBet?
The most positive experience ever, and that's genuine. Christian and Mark and the team there do a fantastic job. As you said yourself, they'll lay you to lose £1,000 at 8:30 in the morning, generally more on the bigger races, Group 1s, Group 2s, etc., Saturday racing. And then I think it's 2K from 10:30, 11 o'clock. But you can always ask for more, and if they're happy to take the horse on, then they'll take the horse on. Never had a problem with withdrawals. Occasionally, if Christian's on horse, they'll say, well, the withdrawal will be there when he's back in the office, either later on in the evening or the next morning, and never had one issue at all. Not a bad word to say about them. Genuine joy to deal with. They have conversations about the industry and how things are going with them, and it's refreshing. It's a refreshing take. Normally you get online chats with people that don't know one end of going stick to another, or it's just different. It's refreshing in this day and age.
Yeah, you often don't hear the quote, a genuine joy to deal with when it comes to getting a horse racing bet on with a bookmaker. And you can place these online for the website or via WhatsApp, can't you? I think as well as maybe there's a deposit, certain threshold and things that you've got to place to a certain degree. So it's only for the people who are willing to put in and bet. Well, it's probably going to be worthwhile, but bet to not huge stakes, but obviously you're able to bet at stakes that make it worthwhile for you.
Yeah, I think their deposit limit, they take Visa, MasterCard, bank transfer, I still think they do. I think your minimum deposit's £50 or something. I think funds are ring-fenced, I believe, off the top of my head. So yeah, they're kind of the firm that you would like to hope they got more recreational business and more business than they do get, because they're well run, they're happy to take on business, and it kind of feels like the independents that their names aren't out there just because there is a lack of advertising. That huge advertising budget isn't there. So yeah, that's something I would recommend.
Well, it's interesting. They follow me at SBC. I actually reached out to them to see if they wanted to come on a podcast in the future. Who knows? Because they are tweeting about what they will lay, like I talked about earlier, and they obviously want to attract punters that maybe can't get on elsewhere, who are interested in betting with perhaps a bookmaker that's not an odds checker. Well, they are a bookmaker, not an odds checker, but one which has a good reputation. I've heard that, what you've said, backed up by other people as well. I want to talk about Ostlers Racing. That's another one. They've got a late to lose. I think they've got a £1,000 per bet from 11 a.m. or up to £2,000 to win in the 30 minutes before the official race time. And another small independent, but is this a service that you use as well? WhatsApp, telephone, text message available?
Yep, I use them now and then. Again, you've hit now on the head with that. You've done your research, Peter. 1K late to lose from 11 a.m. And then 2K it's half hour from the start of the race. So essentially on the show betting. Never had a problem with withdrawals. Not a bad word to say about them. They kind of just do what they say on the tin. Say you are a punter and you've got MacBet win to lay 2K and then win to lay a K from like 11 o'clock. It gives you options to win 3K at that time of the day. Again, just an underused firm, which is sad to see. Like MacBet, racecourse firm in the north of England generally, friendly, experienced, knowledgeable. Not had knockbacks in terms of like prices. Like I've asked for a price, they said this price, and as long as you're not waiting 10 minutes for it to tick under on the machine, then you'll be accommodated at the price you ask for.
No, that's great to hear. Another positive bookmaker here on horse racing. And they only do offer horse racing UK and Irish at the moment. Just to give some more information, that they do take multiples, so even lucky 15s. There is a $2,000 maximum liability on any bet, so don't think you're going to get that lucky 15 lottery ticket big win with them. But they do offer BOG, best odds guaranteed, up to a maximum of £100 to win £50 each way. So there's some options there. Although what is notable is that their hours of business are 11 a.m. till 6 p.m. So those of you wanting to bet into very early markets, well, they're not going to accommodate you, and why would they? But certainly want to go and check out. There's a couple more. Perhaps we can talk about McCartan Bet. It's a Northern Irish based firm.
Yeah, absolutely fine. I've not put a massive business through them, done bits and pieces. Again, another on-course betting firm. So it's the on-course firms that have kind of stood the test of time, that are willing to take business in a market where people aren't willing to take business. Sports betting with them, they've got the football coupons as well. No lay to lose from my experience, but again, are kind of willing to take not massive bets, but bets and take opinions.
That's right. And I think they offer sports as well. So there's more options there beyond. And looking at the website, they've got telebetting, text a bet, telegram a bet, request a bet app. So all kinds of online ways for you to place a bet quickly or request a price quickly. So some options there, especially for those of you looking for other sports than just horse racing. How about Joe Jennings? That's an independent chain, Joe Jennings, but they're also online, aren't they? They take bets, I believe, through Telegram and telephone betting.
Yeah, I've done bits and pieces through Telegram betting. I kind of find that way easier rather than calling people up personally. I don't really like spending time on the phone.
Busy man.
Yeah, because time's better spent nowadays. But yeah, they've got a good horse racing offering, normally towards the top of the market, to be honest, from what I found, whether that's just the horses that I've asked to bet. Normal kind of online offerings. They've got the 2-up that everyone seems to be doing nowadays on the football.
Yeah.
Nice offers for recreational punters, Fouler insurance. I like the few Foulers I've backed of late, so I wish I had that. And the sign-up bonuses, a few £10 free bets and cash back on monthly losses, which is always nice at the end of a losing month when they give you 5% back.
It is, indeed. And you get extra place races as well. So they've best odds guaranteed, I believe. So there's a few offers there which wouldn't be out of place with some of the odds checker firms. So Joe Jennings, obviously a little bit of a bigger firm, it seems. So worth checking that one out. And how about BetGem? Is that one you use as well? JEM?
I have not, but I have heard good things about BetGem.
Dorset's leading independent bookmaker, JEM. So obviously another on-course firm, it seems.
I've seen them around the on-course side of things. I haven't used them. Is there anything you can tell me about them, Pete?
Well, they're online and they've been around since 1986. So obviously they've got 4 betting shops down in the south, so Bournemouth, Poole and Weymouth. And essentially you can open an account online. They've got a Telegram messaging service, free £25 bet for all new customers. So this is one we don't really have much experience of, but again, it's a company that's been around for 35 years, 36 years. So I dare say that they do know what they're doing. So I want to check out, yeah. And there's a few more, isn't there? I think the one that we haven't spoke about really so much is Goodwin Racing, because you were saying that they've perhaps become a little bit more corporate since we last spoke.
Yeah, they used to be, in my opinion, a decent firm, and they seem to have become a lot more corporate. There's a lot of sponsorship. I know they sponsor the boxer Ebony Bridges, or they previously did before her last fight.
Blonde bomber.
Yes, the blonde bomber. So I kind of haven't put. I did get knocked back over there, so I've not put a big business through them for a while. Maybe it's a relationship that I can reignite, and then maybe next time we speak, I can speak in glowing terms about them. But again, I can't moan at being closed. That's part and parcel of the game. But in terms of other people, they're open from 8 o'clock in the morning. Service is always good. Service has been fantastic there. I'm not going to knock a firm for not laying me a bet. So it's open for others to give them a go and see what they make of them, to be honest. They've got all sorts of sports, so you can bet on absolutely anything over there, pretty much.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got like best odds guaranteed, also WhatsApp, phone, Telegram. Like I say, they've got all kinds of offers and availability there. I think the last time we spoke, you hadn't had any issues. We spoke about them earlier this year, but since then, obviously, that's crept up. But like I say, perhaps maybe for you, someone professional, it might not be a firm that will accommodate you to the state or degree that you would like. But for somebody else, perhaps there is options there for them. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But so that's the 5 or 6 firms we've covered there. Is there any that I haven't referenced yet that you use or you've noted?
One that I've got my eye on using, see if I can keep it under the radar. Well, quite a big firm, to be honest, up and coming, Kaluki. I've heard good things. I think you've heard decent things about them as well.
Yeah.
There's one I'm going to try out over the coming months and the quiet winter months and see what sort of leeway I get. And maybe I'll post it in a blog and let people know how I've got on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just look at, because I have looked at them in the past. I think you can go through WhatsApp. They offer football, they offer horse racing. Like I say, I think they sponsor the Final Furlong, I want to say, podcast. And so they're out there on Twitter and what have you. Yeah, best price guarantee on horse racing, best price guarantee on greyhound, daily boosts and offers, fast payouts, and they're obviously also at race courses. So all licensed firms as well, it should say. So these are all under the auspices of our great leaders, the Gambling Commission, who make sure that they're doing everything correct. So, we're not going to tell you to go and bet in the black market, but these are all legitimate and often on-course race bookmakers. So I recently had Simon Knott on the podcast and he was talking about how impressive so many of these on-course race bookmakers are, especially in the current industry, and how hard it is to scrape a profit. They're betting to very small margins and really having to fight for business and fight to make a profit. So I suppose the ease of use of developing a website and having instant communication facilities like WhatsApp and Telegram and request to bet apps and what have you, it just allows them to, increase their business online or through, instant messaging for very little overhead and extra cost. So certainly worth going to check out some of these. And how much of your business would you say is proportion you put through independents versus some of the major firms? Assuming, you're all closed down, but perhaps you do have some people that can put on for you.
Yeah, I've got a few putter honors. Use Pinnacle this side of the pond, which is a nice option. But the majority, I'd say, is through other means, black market means, but a mix between black market means and independents. A fair bit of business. I put more business through independents than I do with the firms. That's safe to say.
So there you go. That's really worth checking out. If someone like you is betting with them extensively and not had huge number of issues, well, just with the one firm we referenced there, Goodwin, but some of the others, open to mature conversations about getting a bet on and understanding that you might not get all the bells and whistles that some major firms might offer or top prices, but you're going to get a price that's still value. Even if, let's say, Bet365 are offering 6-1 and they'll offer you 5 or 11-2 and you still think that's a good edge, then certainly that's something to go and consider if you want to bet with them. So thank you ever so much for that, Quentin. And actually, thank you for everything today and learning more about your service, coming back on. I really am looking forward to working alongside you and trying to navigate your service, which makes it both in theory and practice, the ability for people to get on their bets. And in terms of 2023, it's business as usual in terms of the same types of bets and the same tips. For people that have been following you for several years, it's the same strategy, isn't it? Nothing is really changing on that front.
No, exact same strategy, more hard work. Going to spend the winter months trying to find some more edges, some possibly systems to follow. But win only 3 to 4 to 5 bets a day throughout the summer. Lots of hard work, lots of pricing up races, lots of video research, and hopefully can have another fantastic year. just striving to do better. As I said, with the fantastic setup that you've got and the ability to send more than one email a day, I feel I'll thrive and certainly get towards the dizzying heights of 17.5% return investment. So that's the long-term aim.
Yeah, well, that's a good aim, and I feel like it's a realistic one. So, yeah, if you're listening and you're interested, you can find all the links. I'll slide in all the links to the independent firms as well in the show notes, as well as links to information about Quentin's service and his results. So, with that, Quentin, I want to say thank you ever so much, and wish you all the very best moving into 2023 with your betting.
Thank you, Peter, and likewise to yourself. Thank you very much for having me on again, and look forward to working with you.
Great stuff. Thank you.